In the opening scene, we see passengers arriving at the Scotland airport. Sarah spots Lindsay, who is a medical practitioner and her husband's sister. Sarah is married to Brad, a tax attorney, and all three of them arrive in Scotland to spend the Yuletide as a family. However, Brad and Lindsay look uneasy seeing each other. Meanwhile, Josephine, their mother, looks happy as she anticipates her children who will be arriving soon. Sarah disrupts the silence in the car as she wonders why they never visit Scotland, despite their mom growing up there. The siblings think their mother is up to something, and that's the reason she made them disrupt their plans and other engagements to come down to Scotland for the festive period. They arrive at the castle of Glencrave, where they will be lodging. All three of them stand still, staring at the structure in front of them whilst the bagpiper plays a Christmas carol right at the entrance. Brad, Sarah, and Lindsay walk in admiring the interior beauty of the building, when Hamish interrupts their conversation stating that the 700-year-old castle is rather fit for generations of dukes and duchesses, rather than Brad's initial idea of a queen and king. The bubbly and energetic Hamish welcomes everyone by introducing himself as their Christmas edition tour guide for the day. He also gives them a brief history of the Glencrave Castle and all it has in store for every tourist present in the hotel for this Christmas season. He calls on all of them to follow him as he leads the way. Lindsay, who tries to tell him they're not on a tour, succumbs to Hamish's directives. Hamish takes them to the castle's keep, which is the first room to be built when the castle was first built in 1491, and it also serves as a place of refuge when the castle is under attack. He shows them the last Christmas portrait at Glencrave before the Scottish Parliament banned it in 1640, and celebrating Christmas was a crime up until 1958. He shows them the official Glencrave clan crest, which the family has worn proudly for over 8 centuries and can be found throughout the castle. He reveals more history of the castle's keep before leading them to the next area. Next, at the upper foyer, which houses photos of past dukes, Brad asks about one of the photos that catches his attention, and Hamish informs them of the recent duke, who passed away some weeks back, before leading them to the grand ballroom. Josephine walks into the upper foyer with Graham right behind her. She enthusiastically welcomes her children, and assures them together they are all going to have the best Christmas ever. Sarah wonders if they will be staying at the Glencrave Castle, and she immediately responds that she grew up in the immediate area, and it is the best place for the holiday in Scotland, so they will be staying there. Sarah seeks to know if the whole place is a hotel, and Graham steps in, rolling out the locations where guests are allowed to roam, and the strictly off-limit areas. Afterwards, he introduces himself as the butler at Glencrave, who has worked there for 50 years. Josephine cuts in when she notices Lindsay staring at the family photograph of the former duke. She urges them to get to their rooms while Graham leads the way. They are to come down for dinner by 8 p.m. Lindsay finds Brad's sweater in her suitcase, and almost immediately, Brad comes in to tell her he is with her keys. He informs her that they can't avoid each other all week, hoping she is not skipping dinner because of him. Lindsay thinks their mother has the idea of the perfect Morgan Christmas holiday, so they just have to tolerate each other. The siblings agree to give their mother the Christmas she desires and then go back to their normal way of life. Lindsay steps out to make a call due to the poor network reception in the building. A man walks towards her, admiring the Christmas lights. He invites her to a big bonfire to celebrate the Christmas solstice in a few days. She agrees that the lights look beautiful, however she doesn't think she would be around for that. She laughs at his disappointment, but then she has a different kind of Christmas in store for the year. So, she heads back to the building, leaving the stranger behind, who wishes her a Merry Christmas in Scots. In Brad and Sarah's room, Sarah shows Brad what she bought for Lindsay, but he seems to be uninterested, so she requests to know what went wrong in their relationship, as they used to be close when they were kids. Brad reveals that his relationship is different from hers and her family, noting they are not kids anymore. Therefore, he and Lindsay just don't pick up from wherever they left off. Brad excuses himself to go take a walk, while Sarah requests to know if what he just said applies to spouses too. After leaving his room, Brad turns to see Lindsay, who is puzzled as to why their mom is heading to the 4th floor that has an off-limit sign on it. He has no idea why. The next morning, Brad's sleep gets interrupted by the bagpiper, who is playing a melodious carol tune at the castle's entrance. He picks up his phone to read a message from his mother. Meanwhile, Lindsay hears the sound too as the loud music filters into every room and wakes them up. Lindsay stands by the hallway, staring at the 4th floor when Brad steps out of his room. She confirms from him to be certain that the 4th floor contains the private room, as she still doesn't understand why their mom went up there the previous night. Brad asks if she got the text from their mom stating they should come downstairs for breakfast, and he doesn't seem to know why she is interested in the 4th floor. Before he could say jack, Lindsay runs up and he chases after her, trying to prevent her from going up. Lindsay hastily looks through some rooms when a lady dressed as a cleaner opens her door, asking why they are in the private quarters. They pretend to be looking for their room and apologize before leaving. Lindsay ignores Brad, who is urging her to quit her search, but she refuses to give up in her search as she moves away from there and continues in her attempt to uncover the reason her mother came up. She suddenly opens a room and sees her mother's sweater. She walks in with Brad behind her, pleading with her to stop snooping around. She looks through the room and finds a newspaper article containing a headline that announces the birth of Glencrave's Duke and Duchess's heiress. She recognizes the birth date to be her mom's. Suddenly, the door opens to reveal Mrs. Josephine singing a Christmas medley. Upon seeing them, she gets startled, wondering what they are doing there. Brad and Lindsay ask if she brought them for Christmas or if there might be more to it, as Lindsay shows her the newspaper publication she is holding. Josephine sighs and confesses the time has come for them to learn the truth. Josephine takes them down memory lane to when she was a young girl. She attempts to run away with an American man to California, but her brother, Danny, catches her about to leave. He tries convincing her not to leave, suggesting she speak to their parents about it, because if she leaves they might not accept her again. She insists she is going to travel with the American band, as she doesn't fit into her family's world, which her parents will never understand. She bid her brother a Merry Christmas, reminding him that she loves him before jetting off. Back to the present, they are all seated with Sarah. Brad accuses her of lying to them that her parents had a sheep farm, and now Glencrave and the title to it are her family's birthright. She clarifies that she didn't entirely lie to them, because her parents did pass away before they were born, and the whole thing is complicated since as the eldest child, she was meant to be the Duchess, which would mean she can't have a normal life. So she left when she was 20, leaving Danny to carry on the responsibilities because he was better suited for it, while she moved to America with their father, and started their folk group as well as their own little family. Brad feels unhappy finding out his mother cheated them out of knowing their uncle and grandparents, just so she could embrace her true self, while denying them their true selves. Lindsay watches in utter disbelief as she listens to her mother, who has kept her true identity hidden all these years. Josephine apologizes to them, confessing that she just wanted to protect them from her family drama, and she only recently found out Danny succumbed to a heart attack. She admits her wrong, which she would live regretting for the remaining days of her life. Notwithstanding, it is her fondest desire that their trip can be a moment of healing for their family, and for them to have a nice Christmas time together, which they all need. Lindsay excuses herself to go get some air and she finds everything too much to handle. Brad follows behind her, leaving Sarah with their mother. On their way outside the castle, they meet with Hamish, who pauses his lectures with the other visitors, as he announces to them that he is amid greatness, but he failed to realize it the previous day. He attempts to formally introduce them to the visitors, when Brad and Lindsay cut him short, requesting he continue with what he was doing while they hurry out. The siblings stroll outside the castle, both expressing their dislike of the way things are turning out, especially finding out their mother kept away the knowledge of their uncle, grandparents, and the castle from them. But then, since Sarah is still with their mother, maybe she will get to the bottom of the story. Lindsay requests to know if he and Sarah are okay, as she observes they seem to be off with each other. Brad doesn't want to talk about it, plus, she hasn't been involved in their lives. Before she could get a chance to defend what he says, he reminds her how she quickly went off even before the first toast at their wedding. She blames it on him for fixing his wedding on the weekend, before her med school entrance exams. She gets triggered by Brad's statement as they get into a fit of defense and throw blame at each other for not showing up for each other on their special days over the years. Lindsay just doesn't see a reason to stay at the castle, as she intends to reschedule her flight so she can go away. They continue along the path when Lindsay sees the man she had met earlier, busy tending to a horse. This time he introduces himself as Mac Bell, Glencrave property manager. She introduces herself and her brother to him, and he inquires if they would like a tour, but Lindsay declines. Brad quickly says his sister would like to see the grounds while he has to get back to his wife. He runs off, leaving the speechless Lindsay with Mac. Lindsay explains she was simply trying to book a seat on a flight, and Mac wonders why she wants to leave before she gets the opportunity to discover her family and her land. He must have heard about her relationship with the Glencrave castle. She smiles, accepting he takes her on a quick tour. On the tour around the castle, Lindsay apologizes for the previous night, and he urges her not to worry about it, as he understands it can be pretty overwhelming to take in 30,000 acres of family history. She is surprised to find out the Glencrave castle covers that much land, among other things, as they chat all the way. They arrive at an expanse of land and Mac makes their way to get some wood for the bonfire, and a tree for decorations. They talk about their personal lives and Mac consents that she isn't so close to her brother, so he seeks to know why. She explains that they used to be close as kids, but they seem to have drifted apart over time. He exemplifies the cut down trees to encourage her to nurture her relationship with her brother, as their relationship will grow stronger than ever. In the next scene, Mac and Lindsay arrive at the castle a few moments later, dragging the tree into the house, while Brad rushes towards them to assist. Later, Lady Josephine, Brad, Lindsay, and Sarah are all seated in the room. Brad reveals to his mother that he doesn't understand what was so terrible about the place, to the point that she took a wrecking ball to her family. To clarify things, she uses their individual lives as an example. She asks how they would feel if she had refused their decision to go to med school or get married. She further explains she felt caged at that time as she was required to talk, walk, and wave in a certain way. This rule applies even to the school she attends and the man she is expected to marry. She just couldn't handle her life being about duty before personal desires or interests. However, Lindsay feels like they should have been informed rather than being left in the dark. Sarah changes the topic by asking what will happen to the castle now that Danny is no more. Josephine admits Danny left it all to her, but she can't handle the estate and she believes Danny very well. So, he had a wish in his will that she spend one last Christmas at Glencrave with her family. This response doesn't answer Sarah's question, so Josephine mentions passing the estate down to them since she is in total control of the estate. That way, they can become a duke and duchess if they so desire. However, if they are not interested, she has already contacted an attorney and an estate agent to weigh their options. Brad feels like they will be letting Danny down and Josephine offers to show them something. She takes them to a room containing Danny's crafts. He was an expert craftsman who spent all year making stuff only to give them out to kids on Christmas solstice. She smiles broadly as she shares memories of how selfless her brother has always been from when he was young. Brad admires his uncle's gifts and generosity. Josephine suggests they hit the town and probably visit the Christmas market for some shopping. At the town square, the family of four watches as Hamish and a group of dancers energetically perform on stage. After seeing them, Hamish calls on Brad and Sarah to join him. Brad initially declines but decides to take on the challenge when Lindsay teases him for being afraid. Max shows up and calls Lindsay to dance with him. Josephine beams with so much joy and happiness as she watches her children dance. After the dance show, Hamish compliments their skills. Josephine sees Elspeth, her childhood best friend, at the plant shop where she is picking up some plants to make kissing bells to promote fertility for Brad and Sarah, with the hope she will be welcoming a grandchild soon. The women beams with so much joy after seeing each other again. Josephine introduces her family to Elspeth before joining her friend inside the store. Elspeth and Josephine catch up on the good old days as they enter Elspeth's clothing. When Brad, Sarah, and Lindsay walk into the store, Elspeth excitedly tells them about the ball at the Glencrave Castle, hoping they will be there to witness it. Sarah assures her they will give it a thought and she suggests Brad and Lindsay should go grab some drinks, while she picks some clothes with Josephine. Lindsay and Brad step into the Salingers pub to get some drinks, and the chatty barman takes their orders. Once again, Lindsay requests to know what is going on with Brad and his wife, but he isn't ready to spill, because they've not been into sharing their emotional stuff in the past few years. She urges him to share rather than bottling up everything inside. Brad eventually reveals he has been going through a bit of a rough patch with his wife. He further explains their initial decision not to have kids as they both came from divorced homes, but along the line, Sarah wants to have kids. This has led to some failed IVFs. Everything seems to put a strain on their relationship. Lindsay advises that they talk it out, but Brad feels there is no point, because he believes that communication never really works, just like the case with his sister. Lindsay gets all defensive, but they hush up as they listen to the old woman expressing her concern over Josephine, who decided to run away for years to America. Brad and Lindsay head back to Elspeth's shop and they inform their mother they will be staying until after Christmas. However, Lindsay doesn't want to hear about other secrets, so they all agree that there will be no more secrets. The next morning, a loud and continuous knock from Graham wakes Lindsay. He requests her help, as Mac has fallen from the horse. After seeing him, Lindsay suggests taking him to the hospital to get an X-ray done, even as Mac suggests visiting the closer clinic. At the medical center, Dr. Bell informs Lindsay that Mac is accident-prone, as he is always getting himself injured, and she recounts some previous occasions. Lindsay discovers Dr. Bell, whose name is Amarilla, is his mother. Immediately they realize they share some similarities. Amarilla warns Mac to be more careful. She doesn't have time to always tend to him because she is busy with work, especially as they are short-staffed. After Mac completes his treatment, he and Lindsay stroll down the street. Lindsay admires the beauty of the town, and she sees a matching pair of pajamas, which reminds her of the one her mother used to buy for her and her brother. Just then her mom's call comes in. Elspeth's husband owns a distillery and wants to know if they would like to be judges in the annual Christmas whiskey competition, which is to take place later in the day. Mac accepts the opportunity, also convincing Lindsay to take the opportunity, even though she doesn't know much about whiskey or is a judge of it. In the next scene, Elspeth's husband welcomes everyone to the annual whiskey competition, giving them a brief history and processes involved in making premium Scotch whiskey. The event kicks off and everyone tastes the whiskey before them, also noting down their observations. At the end of the event, he announces the winning Scotch, which is to be served at Glencrave's Christmas ball. Later on, Brad, Sarah, Lindsay, and Josephine chat while heartily reminiscing on some events they attended as kids. Elspeth interrupts their little chat, calling them to come try out the new whiskey and Christmas fig cake they made. Only Mac and Lindsay are left behind. Mac wants her to get involved in the affairs of Glencrave so he can pass down everything Danny has taught him to her. The next morning, Lindsay confesses her love for Scotland to Graham, but then she still finds it difficult to digest everything. Later on, Lindsay is heading up to her room and she meets with Brad, who is about to go out. He informs her that he got a text from Mac about rounding up some Shetland ponies for the solstice celebration, so he is heading there. Both of them agree to meet there. At the stable, Mac reveals the routine and activities of the Shetland. The siblings reminisce on the last Christmas they spent together before their parents' divorce. Lindsay confesses to Brad that the reason she told him he would make a good father is because of how he protected and cared for her after their parents divorced. Meanwhile, at the house, Sarah and Josephine are sorting out the flowers they got from the market. Josephine apologizes for saying Brad and Sarah should work on giving her grandkids, in case she finds the statement as her overstepping earlier at the Christmas market. Sarah understands Josephine's and she responds with a smile. Back at the forge, Lindsay wonders what her brother is going to do about the Glencrave situation. Brad reveals he is as confused as she is, because he seems to feel some connections to the place, but then, he can't just quit his new job to start over in Scotland. Lindsay suggests he discuss it with Sarah, but he doesn't like the idea because of their ongoing misunderstanding. However, Lindsay encourages him to try sorting things out with her, because their relationship has been a source of admiration for her. Back at the castle, Josephine sees off some visitors and she remembers she sent a mail to Danny before his demise, so she moves towards Graham to find out if he knows about it. Graham informs her that Danny collects his mail, so he wouldn't know, but he could help her find it, but she doesn't want him to bother. Over at the forge, Brad thanks Mac heartily for bringing them, and Mac invites them to the party he is hosting later at night. When Brad and Lindsay arrive at the castle, Sarah suggests they attend Mac's party and have fun like they used to. The family arrives at the party and Hamish quickly invites them to the dance floor. Minutes later, when Lindsay and Mac are seated at a table, she wonders how he became the property manager of Glencrave. Mac reveals that his father was the property manager for many years. So after his demise, her uncle Daniel requests he take over from where his father left off. Soon, Amarilla, Mac's sister Isla, and her husband Thomas join them. Lindsay thinks Thomas looks a bit familiar, but he says he gets that a lot from people. Moments later, Mac engages in a dance competition and the crowd cheers them on. Soon after, Thomas and Lindsay join in. Eventually, Isla crowns Lindsay as the winner of the dance competition. Afterward, only Lindsay and Mac are left. Lindsay turns to appreciate Mac. He gets attracted to her and kisses her lips briefly before they part for the night. The next day happens to be the Christmas solstice, and as usual, Hamish wakes everyone in the castle up with the loud sound of his bagpipe. Preparation is in full swing for the bonfire. Lindsay tries bringing up the kiss she shared with Mac the previous night, but he prefers to just let it be and focus more on having fun and see how things would turn out. After Mac calls everyone together, narrating the legend of the longest night of the year, the children cheer in excitement as he tells his story. The night gets darker, and soon Brad dresses up in Santa's costume and instructs the kids to receive their gifts from Lindsay, who is dressed as an elf. Josephine and Graham watch them from the crowd and she admires her children, as she imagines how Danny would have loved to see what is going on right there. After the bonfire is over, Brad walks into the castle with Sarah beside him. She compliments his effort for the day's activities. He feels appreciated, unlike when he was at work with some disgruntled people wandering in and out of his door. This makes Sarah laugh because she also feels it has been a break from her family, but then she requests they have an honest conversation. Brad knows exactly what she wants to talk about. He thinks that it is fine for them to remain at Glencrave Castle as well as start a family, as long as it makes her happy. The couple quickly sort their unspoken differences in a few minutes, embracing each other and declaring their love for each other again. Just outside the castle, Mac and Lindsay sit by the bonfire. Mac compliments the way her family has been embracing Glencrave. He encourages her to give Glencrave a chance, especially since she could practice her medical profession alongside his mother, who needs a partner at the hospital. But Lindsay is still undecided. She thinks Glencrave feels like a fairy tale during the festive period, and it will soon be over after the celebrations fade off. Mac tries to let her know she can still go ahead and give it a try. The next morning, while Graham, Josephine, and Sarah are in the kitchen kneading some dough, Graham narrates how people who requested a Yule log were reported to the police when Christmas was banned in Scotland. Later, the couple, with no misunderstanding between them again, seems to have a more romantic relationship. Josephine walks in to inform them of her just concluded call with the real estate attorney, who advised they subdivide the estate. Brad suggests they talk to Lindsay about it and make a decision as a family. Later, the family all gather up to discuss the way forward with the estate. Brad, Sarah, and Lindsay are against the idea of dividing the estate, which has been beneficial to a lot of families, into parts just because they don't know how to manage it. Lindsay suggests they work with Mac, who knows everything about the estate and has been willing to help. They like her idea and make an exciting toast to new beginnings, as they have eventually reached a uniform decision on how to handle the estate. At the bar, Brad informs Sarah that Mac is in. The barman wonders what their plan is for Glencrave. Brad informs him of their unanimous decision, and the barman shares that what makes Glencrave special is the blood coursing through their veins, which has survived 500 years of royal feuds, revolutions, famine, and plagues. He reminds them of how their family has been of immense benefit to the people around them. Brad and Sarah pay rapt attention to him as his words sink in. The next morning, the family sits around to dine and talk about how they would like to be introduced at the ball held later in the day. Josephine and Lindsay simply prefer their names carrying the Morgan surname. Brad and Sarah reveal their decision to move down to Scotland and take the titles of Duke and Duchess. Josephine is super excited about the news. She even offers to announce the good news at the ball, but Lindsay doesn't like the sound of that. She feels betrayed that Brad went against their agreement by making such a decision without consulting her. Later on in the day, Lindsay walks to the burial place for the Glencrave clan. She sees her mother talking to Danny's grave and she approaches her. The mother and daughter move to sit in a chair nearby. Lindsay expresses her disappointment in Brad. She thinks they are going to have a new start and fix their relationship, but she doesn't know how they are supposed to do that when he intends on moving down to Scotland. Josephine encourages her that distance isn't a barrier to their relationship. She reveals that she sent a letter to Danny just before he passed away, and how she requests to see him once more, and also apologizes for causing their relationship to drift. She pleads that her daughter attends the ball. Lindsay meets with Mac at the Christmas market and he is disappointed knowing she intends to go back to California. He encourages her to follow her heart and listen to what she feels for him. In the next scene, the ball is about to get started. Graham walks in to meet Josephine staring at the mirror. He shows her the letter she wrote to Danny with a note he found in a special box. Josephine tears up upon realizing her brother read her letter and he also forgave her shortcomings. The ball kicks off and Hamish introduces the special guests by their titles as they walk into the ballroom. Minutes later, Lindsay walks in, handing her name card to Hamish to be introduced as she walks in gracefully. Her mother gushes at her beautiful appearance as she approaches her. Lindsay walks over to Brad and Sarah on the dance floor, and she requests a dance with her brother. She apologizes for getting upset with him earlier and the both of them come to an agreement to visit each other and catch up on the times they missed together. Soon Mac approaches them requesting a dance with Lindsay, complimenting her looks. A little while later, Josephine appreciates everyone present at the ball. On behalf of her brother, she announces Brad and Morgan as the 12th Duke and Duchess of Glencrave. The crowd cheers for them. Lindsay hands an early Christmas gift she got for Brad and she helps him put it on. It is the insignia of the Glencrave clan on his coat. The next morning, Lindsay drops Christmas presents in front of everyone's door. The other members of the family walk in to find everyone wearing matching pajamas. They happily wish each other a Merry Christmas. Later in the evening, Lindsay meets with Mac at the stable. She hands him a Christmas pajama present she got for him, and he in turn requests to assist her in wearing the Glencrave crest he got for her. Lindsay reveals she will be leaving first thing the next morning and Mac, who is already head over heels in love with her, confesses how glad he is to have met a special person like her. He kisses her one last time before sadly watching her leave. The next morning, Graham informs Lindsay that the car is ready and he will be driving her. She walks down surprised to meet everyone standing as they gather to see her off. She hugs her mother before locking arms with Brad, who walks her to the car. Brad confesses he will miss her and the siblings embrace each other, warmly expressing their love for each other. He hands her one last gift before bidding her goodbye as she steps into the car. On her ride to the airport, she opens up Brad's gift and finds a note alongside a key. She reads Brad and Sarah's note stating her key to the castle is attached to the note and that she is always welcome at any time. She tears up feeling so emotional. Suddenly, she instructs Graham to turn the car around back to the castle. She rushes into the castle informing them she could figure out how to make things work, if she can figure out how to run her practice. Brad excitingly offers his support to her and she quickly turns to face Mac, inquiring how he would feel about dating a duchess. Mac wears a big smile as he walks towards her, revealing it would be an honor for him. He places a kiss on her lips and the whole family cheers, welcoming her back. A year later, the family gathers once again for Christmas celebration, and Brad walks in with his little princess. It is such an exciting time for them and Graham suggests they gather for a family Christmas photograph.